This is CBN NewsWatch.
Thanks for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Mark Martin. We begin with a different kind of back-to-school season this year as students and parents navigate what it will be like as COVID-19 concerns linger across the nation. There are new standards in place and a bit of trial and error. Teachers and school leaders are looking for ways for students to gather safely and learn, and even still possibly learn at a distance depending on circumstances. Some school districts reopened to students only to backtrack on their plans. One Georgia high school had crowded halls full of students, but now going back to remote learning after close to a dozen students and staff tested positive. Parents and students were concerned about how it all played out.
It was worse than I thought it would be because I thought more kids would be wearing masks, and I thought social distancing would be attempted in the school, but it wasn't.
The American Academy of Pediatrics is saying 97,000 kids tested positive in the last 2 weeks of July alone, all happening while school was still out for the summer or under lockdown. Overall, more than 330,000 children have tested positive for the virus. Health expert Dr. Ashish Jha says that's a reminder that kids can get infected.
There is very good data on educational reasons to get the younger kids back in. So for a variety of reasons, all of us, I think, believe that kindergarten through fifth grade really should be a priority. This really does have to be individualized. And this is what's so frustrating about looking at places like that Georgia school, where the case levels were just so high, there was no way to responsibly open up those schools. In New York, what I would be looking for if I were a parent living in New York is I'd want to make sure that there was a plan for making sure all the kids have masks on, that there is a reasonable amount of distancing in schools. I'd also want to look at simple things like, can you open up the windows and could you hold classes outside? Anything that improves ventilation, I think, would make a very big difference. And I would really push for all of those factors before I made a final decision.
The Trump administration believes students can return to class safely, observing the same guidelines the nation has been practicing. One drug that could possibly treat the virus is hydroxychloroquine. It's a tried and true drug that's been used to treat things like malaria and lupus for decades now. So why are doctors who say it's a good thing being prevented from promoting it to the public? CBN's Dale Hurd has that story.
How did a drug known for decades as safe and effective suddenly become dangerous? Hydroxychloroquine is so safe that in several nations it's sold over the counter without a prescription. But the media has started treating hydroxychloroquine like a public health menace. And this pharmaceutical smear campaign began around the time this guy started talking it up.
I'm taking it, hydroxychloroquine. Right now, yeah. A couple of weeks ago, I started taking it. Because I think it's good. I've heard a lot of good stories.
Then came all the news stories about how hydroxychloroquine is somehow risky to take, or that it doesn't work against COVID-19. And when this group of physicians, calling themselves America's frontline doctors, held a press conference in Washington to educate about COVID-19 and tell the truth about hydroxychloroquine, they got the same treatment the media's been giving the drug. Video of their press conference accumulated over 17 million views during the 8 hours it was hosted on Facebook. But when Donald Trump Jr. tweeted it, his Twitter account was restricted for sharing content that may pose a risk to people's health. Then all videos of America's frontline doctors were stripped from Facebook and YouTube, and their website was taken down. An avalanche of negative stories began.
The impact of COVID misinformation, how it's hurting the fight on the front lines.
These experienced licensed physicians were called quacks, funded by dark money. And with USA Today reporting the doctors don't know what they're talking about.
So if you ask me if I expected that, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I don't know what to say to that. You know, I thought I lived in America. You had a bunch of doctors talking literally about science getting deplatformed. It's outrageous.
The group's spokesperson, Dr. Simone Gold, with over 31 years of experience in the medical field, says she was then let go by a hospital for what it called the embarrassing video.
I'm a board-certified emergency physician. We are pretty hard to come by, and suddenly they don't need me. I mean, it's ridiculous.
And all this over a drug many doctors believe is safer than Tylenol or aspirin.
It works. We've now shown it works, and we're still pouring hatred on this medicine.
The safety and effectiveness of hydroxychloroquine is certainly debatable. So why can't it be debated on social media? Why has a drug long considered by many doctors to be safe become the first politically incorrect medicine?
It's a political drug now, not a medical drug.
Dr. Harvey Rich, a distinguished cancer epidemiologist and professor of public health at Yale, told Fox News the Ingram angle he believes hydroxychloroquine could save between 75,000 to 100,000 lives, but that it's up against corruption in the medical and pharmaceutical industries.
We're basically fighting a propaganda war against the medical facts.
I think initially the media just hated it because Trump liked it. You know, it fell into category orange man bad.
But hydroxychloroquine could also stand in the way of huge profits. It only cost about $10 a dose. New treatments about to hit the market could cost in the thousands.
The people who benefit from hydroxychloroquine being kept down fall into the following categories. Anyone who has a business interest that competes with hydroxychloroquine, and also politicians and leaders who are invested in keeping Americans in fear.
Dr. Anthony Fauci continues to say hydroxychloroquine doesn't work.
The overwhelming prevailing clinical trials that have looked at the efficacy of hydroxychloroquine have indicated that it is not effective in coronavirus disease.
But a recent Henry Ford Health System study of over 2,500 patients found that hydroxychloroquine worked. And there are far more studies showing hydroxychloroquine works than studies showing it doesn't. But it is primarily a prophylactic. Dr. Gold says it works best to prevent COVID or in the early stages of the disease.
It's essentially a magic bullet, especially if you use it early. Rarely have I seen anything in medicine work so well. It's not working like an antibiotic, taking days. When it works, if you give it early, it works within 24 hours. It's really, really dramatic and it's really fast.
But use of hydroxychloroquine is now limited in 44 states, and state medical boards are reportedly threatening doctors who prescribe it, even though the FDA says the decision should be between a doctor and patient. Whatever the reason for the political opposition to this drug, it could mean one less tool that might save a life. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
A new study shows most Americans support the precautionary guidelines churches and houses of worship have taken to prevent the spread of COVID-19. According to a Pew Research Center survey, 8 in 10 Americans say churches should follow the same rules about social distancing in large gatherings as any other business or organization. Among Christians in the U.S., 3/4 say houses of worship should operate under those same conditions. Evangelical Protestants support giving churches more flexibility, though according to the study, a 62% majority say they do support restrictions. In the midst of concerns about the COVID-19 pandemic, thousands of people in Portland, Oregon gathered for a night of praise and worship, and to hear Bethel Music's Sean Foyt speak.
I want to sing one of those old songs with you guys tonight, and then we're going to have our brothers and sisters who are going to do some worship.
4,000 to 7,000 worshipers showed up for the Riots to Revival event Saturday. Organizers said it was an effort to heal the brokenness affecting Americans. Miles away from the worship site, another riot in Portland, Oregon, after a group broke into the city's police association offices and started a fire. Portland police said they continued to feed the fire more fuel, creating a dangerous situation. In a tweet, officers moved the crowd so the fire could be extinguished before it could grow out of control. Media mogul Tyler Perry says talks about defunding the police trouble him. He says there need to be more, not fewer officers. He told Anderson Cooper that police need to be reformed and well-trained, and that the, quote, right structure is needed. This is in sharp contrast to the portion of the Black Lives Matter movement advocating for the dismantling and defunding of police departments across the country. Evangelist Franklin Graham is calling America to prayer once again for the nation. He's asking people to gather in the nation's capital to cry out on behalf of their country.
I'm in Washington, D.C. today, 26th of September. Mark that date, 26th of September. I'm asking you to come and join me right here on the Mall, Washington, D.C. for the Prayer March 2020. We're going to pray for this nation. Our only hope for this country is God. I hope that you'll join me right here on the 26th of September noon, okay? And we're going to march from one end of this mall to the other. Take us about 2 hours, but we're going to march and we're going to pray as we go along the way. God bless you. I'll see you here on the mall. The 26th of September noon, right here, Lincoln Memorial.
That is so needed. Again, the march will be Saturday, September 26th in Washington, D.C. President Trump's decision to bypass Congress and issue executive orders to help unemployed families struggling from the pandemic faces legal challenges on multiple fronts. On Saturday, the president signed a $44 billion coronavirus relief fund, despite objections from Democrats who called the move ineffective and illegal. The big sticking point, the president wants to cut the federal boost to unemployment benefits from $600 to $300. He's also asking states to chip in an extra $100 for each unemployed resident. Democrats argue the White House efforts to extend jobless benefits fall short of helping millions of families.
It would be kind to call it a Swiss cheese because there are more holes than actual things that help New York.
What the president put forth was a complicated formula which said that the states should put up 25% of the money. The states don't have the money to do that. They have expenses from the coronavirus. They have lost revenue from shelter in place.
The president's orders also called for measures to stop evictions, extend relief for student loan borrowers, and deferring the payroll tax on wages for workers making less than $100,000 a year. Democrats are questioning the legality of the president's move, and even one Republican lawmaker, Senator Ben Sasse of Nebraska, calling Trump's unilateral moves unconstitutional slop. The White House dismissing those objections, warning Democrats that they risk angering voters if they stand in the way. Jerry Falwell Jr., president of Liberty University, is taking an indefinite leave of absence from the Christian college following intense backlash after sharing a questionable photo with a young woman. The university released a statement Friday revealing the executive committee of Liberty's Board of Trustees met and agreed to ask Falwell to step down, at least temporarily, from his roles as president and chancellor of Liberty University. Falwell, whose father founded the Christian University in 1971, agreed and stepped down immediately. And you can find more of this story at CBNNews.com. Coming up, the latest from Lebanon as the nation on the brink of collapse faces a crisis in its government. What it all means for the people already facing such devastation.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep as the world watches from the outside.
It's a big diplomatic tug of war here in the Middle East.
Go inside the story with Jerusalem Dateline.
Israeli archaeologists are talking about a discovery that could change the thinking about the Temple Mount.
Join CBN Jerusalem Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell and get the biblical perspective on the events shaping the world.
What starts in Israel then ends up going to other places.
Watch Jerusalem Dateline Friday night at 9:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Lebanon's cabinet has resigned over last week's devastating blast at the Beirut port. Leaders say it was a decision that was made under pressure as several ministers quit or expressed intentions to step down. Meanwhile, the people of Lebanon, crippled by a failed economy and driven by disaster after last week's massive explosion in Beirut, want a change. Here's CBN's Chris Mitchell with more.
Since last week's explosion seen around the world, thousands have marched to Beirut's Martyrs Square to blame Lebanon's leaders for the disaster.
People are enraged. They are enraged that so many politicians and public officials were aware that more than 2,700 tons of explosive material was just left in the port for years without any safety measures.
Many clashing with the police.
We lost it. Our houses, we lost them. Our lives, we lost them. Everything is happening to us. I am 28 years old, and what future do I have? Nothing.
The battle lines are drawn as angry Lebanese protesters briefly took over some government buildings. Prime Minister Diab plans to call early elections, and several parliament ministers have resigned.
We will not accept what happened yesterday unless it is a turning point in Lebanon's history and the Lebanese people get their right, whether Muslim or Christian, so that we'll be able to build a nicer Lebanon for our children and we can live in peace.
In a virtual conference Sunday, including the UN and United States, French President Emmanuel Macron told international leaders the future of Lebanon and the region is at stake. Yet sending help is difficult due to Lebanon's government leaders accused of corruption. President Michel Aoun ruled out an international investigation because he said it would delay justice. Many blame Hezbollah for the disaster, but its leader Hassan Nasrallah denied involvement.
I'd like to confirm today, I declare and confirm a categorical, absolute, decisive, firm denial that we have anything in the site. There is no weapon storage.
I don't buy this with the story at all.
That's because Middle East expert Dr. Mordecai Kadar says Beirut's port had become known as Iran's main arms supply route to Hezbollah. He says it was even called the Fatima Gate, named after the daughter of Mohammed.
Every night between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., Hezbollah actually was kicking out all the officials and the policemen, everybody else, and the gate was for itself to do whatever they like.
Kadar also believes the second explosion before the third main explosion was not fireworks, as some in the government have claimed, but munitions or rocket fuel.
Fireworks do not create such a devastation. And fireworks you can see when they are initiated, you can see them in the sky, even if it's in daylight. So actually, this is what exploded there is ammunition of Hezbollah, which Hezbollah was hiding in the warehouses which he's controlling.
Kadar says the calls for change in Lebanon's government could potentially have the biggest impact on Iran's master plan that has helped Hezbollah entrench itself into Lebanon for 40 years.
Hopefully now the world will start looking at how Hezbollah took over this state, and maybe the world will do something about this or tighten the grip over the Iranians' head of the octopus in order to release states like Lebanon from this grip.
One Beirut resident told CBN News they feel it's not so much a political battle, but a spiritual battle over the future of Lebanon. It's why they're asking the worldwide church to pray for their country. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Definitely pray. Up next, a ProLife movie is pulled by Amazon despite strong reviews. More on the story right after this.
On October 1st, 1961, history was made when a tiny station began transmitting the first signals of the Christian Broadcasting Network.
CBN, the Christian Broadcasting Network.
And now, a new era has begun with the all-new CBN News Channel.
Just moments ago, the Iron Dome intercepted an incoming rocket right on the Gaza border.
Administering in this area, spiritual warfare is definitely involved.
A 24/7 news network, bringing you the news you want from a source you can trust.
In Kenya, 40% of the medical services are actually provided by these Christian hospitals.
Let's talk about the economy.
Believers here are joining together
to win people to Jesus Christ.
All your favorite shows now in one place. Go to CBNNewsChannel.com to find out how to get the CBN News Channel on your TV all day, every day. CBN News. Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Amazon has removed a ProLife film from its platform, citing poor customer reviews as a primary reason for the action. The only problem with this claim is the movie had mostly 5-star reviews. FaithWire.com's Dan Andros joins us now with the story. Welcome, Dan.
Hey, Mark.
First of all, tell us about this movie.
Yeah, well, the movie's called Babies Are Still Murdered Here. It's by a filmmaker and a Christian pro-life activist named Marcus Pittman, and it's a follow-up to a documentary he did a couple years earlier called Babies Are Murdered Here, and it's named after the fact that they're often out in front of abortion clinics preaching the word of God to people who would be going in there to have abortions, and so they held up a sign called Babies Are Murdered Here, and so that kind of took on a life of its own, and that's how they that's the reason for the name of the movie, is it just sort of chronicles them as they witness to people in front of the abortion clinics and things of that nature. So that's the film. It is a provocative name, obviously, but the film is just a pro-life film.
How have the movie makers responded to Amazon pulling it?
Yeah, well, Marcus was a bit incredulous, as you said, mentioned in there, the reviews. He was perplexed by that. The reviews, he's got over 300 reviews. I think it was 344 at the time I talked to him. And he said 90% of them were 5-star reviews. And so that was a bit perplexing, because the automated response that was given to him from Amazon Video was that it was the reviews that were what caused it to be pulled. And so that was really a head scratcher for him. He said, well, the reviews are good. Why are you pulling a movie if the reviews are good? So he was mostly just perplexed by it.
Is this clearly discrimination, Dan, based on the fact that the movie is pro-life with its message? It sure seems that way. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit difficult because, as always is the case with this, we've seen lots of these stories, Mark, with, censorship in some way, shape, or form against Christians or conservatives on various platforms such as Twitter and Facebook and now Amazon Prime with this video. And it's tough because they don't really ever give specifics. They just talk about community standards, and there's very vague language about different kinds of speech and things that aren't allowed. So it's always hard to pin down exactly what it is that caused something like this, because they don't really let you see under the hood at all. And it just always seems to be, the pattern usually seems to be that, conservatives and Christians are the ones that happen to get the brunt of that censorship for whatever reason. And so it's hard to say that it's, definitively, yes, that's what it is. But on the other hand, we've seen the pattern over time. And so it's hard to say it's not what it is.
Yeah, hard to pinpoint it exactly. Well, has Amazon responded? Can viewers have an influence over the media powerhouse? Quickly, we're almost out of time.
Yeah, well, they did respond. It was just an automated response. So again, they said it was their views. But Marcus strongly believes that if enough voices are heard, that even something as big as Amazon Prime is still under the thumb of the free market. And so he encourages people, if you want to see this film and have it available on there, to just be loud, be heard, and let your voice be heard. And that hopefully they'll, if enough voices are there, they'll respond.
All right, Dan Andros with FaithWire.com. Thanks for keeping us in the loop with the culture.
Thanks, Mark.
You can catch Dan tonight with Dale Partridge on Faith versus Culture on the CBN News Channel. It's at 9:30 Eastern. Still ahead, using pine wood to help others with their American dream. Just ahead, how one teenager is chipping away obstacles to help homeless veterans.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Watch Studio 5 Wednesday night at 9:30.
Remember for a moment what it was like to be a child. You believed every story you were told. You saw a world full of endless possibilities. What stories will the world's orphaned and at-risk children believe? We believe the Bible tells the only story truly worth believing. We believe that every child should have the opportunity to dream, the chance to take challenges and turn them into possibilities, the chance to stand on the promises of God, to recognize their place in the greatest story ever told. They have their whole lives ahead of them. Theirs is a world of endless possibilities. They are looking for a story to believe. We will tell them that story. Will you join us?
Young people, millennials, are flocking to church.
It's not an exaggeration to say that we love to meet them and that we love to know their stories.
Welcome back. A 15-year-old boy is carving American flags out of wood for charity. Lorenzo Liberti has spent 8 months working on this project called Heroic Flags, and he's already completed 50 and raised thousands of dollars for homeless veterans, children with special needs, and medical professionals across the country. He said he was inspired after meeting a struggling veteran while his church group was working at a nearby soup kitchen. And that's it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. Remember, you can find more of our news programs on the CBN News Channel anytime or online with cbnnews.com. Also, tell us what you think about the stories you've seen, and you can do that by emailing newswatch@cbn.com. Or you can talk to us on social media through Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We hope you'll join us next time. Have a great day.